Bro, you look so different.
Remember when you were a kid and you had those highlights books and there was a section, it was spot the difference? Try to spot the difference in me from my last stream to this stream. Go. The question is did you spot the difference between me last stream and this stream? That is the question. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's been a couple weeks since my guy Suneil has been on the channel. What's up, Suneil? How you been, man?
Bruh, I know we're close. Mm-hmm. And I know sometimes things get stressful when we aren't able to do this show every single Tuesday. But really, that stressful, bro? That stressful that it just all had to go? I'm sorry, man. I blame myself. I blame myself for you looking 20 years younger.
See, what you don't know is all my hair turned gray, too. That's the crazy part. So, like, I lost the beard and my hair turned gray just because I didn't have a show with you for 2 weeks. It's wild. Absolutely wild. Somebody wants to know, the real question is, who can win in Madden between Rad and I? So we actually used to play Madden pretty tough. We did like the whole online franchise up until about 2 years ago, I think through Madden 21. And we were actually kind of 50-50. He would win, I would win. Every game was a crapshoot, but we both played a similar style, a lot of running and good defense. So, you know, that's just how it worked. Anyways, yes, that's right, Mariah, babyface. Some people say I look younger. Some people say, what the hell are you doing? I'll explain this real quick for everybody. So I was telling this to Suneil too. It's funny because I never had a beard until the pandemic. So everybody who watches me and has known me through the 49er community has only known me with a beard. But my family and friends, everybody who's known me forever, didn't know me with a beard. So when I grew a beard, it was weird to them. And now to you guys, it's weird that I don't have a beard because that's the only way that you recognize me. So interesting contrast, having fun with it. We'll see. I think I might grow it back, but it's fun. It's fun to change it up every once in a while. That being said, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that's happened since we've talked. And right now, I don't know about you, Suneil, but I get a feeling from the community that there's a frustration. Like everybody's just ready for the season to start. I feel like everybody's a bunch of caged animals ready to explode, and everything is a debate. Everything is something we should worry about. Everything is a big deal. And so I just want to go through the list of all the things that are happening with the 49ers, and let's talk to the community. Let's figure out if it's a big deal or not. Should we be worried about this? Are we overblowing this? So first things first, Trey practice struggles. Yesterday, he struggled mightily. Today, a little bit better, but, you know, there were some drops and whatnot. But even then, he was at like 50-something% completion through another pick. Do you think that we're making too much of Trey's practice struggles, or where do you sit in on this topic?
I guess it depends on where you stand, right? Like, so to act like it's nothing, I think is naive. To act like it's the end-all, be-all is also naive. So if you're somewhere in the middle that's like, okay, well, Trey isn't a top 10 quarterback right now, but he doesn't need to be a top 10 quarterback quite yet. He's doing the things he needs to do that we're seeing enough to know that he could play well enough for this team to still be very competitive, because let's be honest, Jesse, this team hasn't had a top 10 quarterback and still been able to have a lot of success. All right. So for me, is Trey struggles being overblown? I'm not sure, because the way that I look at it is I expect Trey to struggle. Like he hasn't been a quarterback that in college threw the ball quite a lot. He's never started in the NFL for a full season. He still hasn't really done everything with the full complement of talent that he's going to have around him. And, this is a limited, I guess, play scheme that he's working with, because this isn't exactly what Kyle Shanahan's going to run out when he's actually in game. So we know that Kyle Shanahan changes what he does during practice and preseason and all that kind of stuff to what he does in regular season. It's not like Jimmy had the full playbook. He obviously called plays to put Jimmy in the best situation that he could put Jimmy in. And I think he's going to do the same thing for Trey. So for me, yeah, it obviously Trey needs work. Like, I don't think any of us thought he was a fully polished, fully ready, capable guy, but I still think that this team has all the aspirations to be competitive this year. I think this team is still going to make the playoffs and still has a chance to make a very deep run and even be a Super Bowl caliber team based off of how Trey develops throughout the season.
Everybody's asking about the beard or lack thereof. No, I didn't prep anybody. I just sprung this on you guys. Surprise. All right. So here's the thing about Trey Lance, and I'm going to answer my side of this by asking you a question, Suneil. If Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback of this team, would your expectations change at all?
No.
There we go. So that's basically the way that I feel. I think that's the way the 49er community should feel. Again, it just depends on what your expectations of Trey are. If you think, well, the 49ers spent 3 first-round picks to go get this kid, they're replacing a guy that you feel may have brought this team to an NFC championship or a Super Bowl, then yeah, maybe these struggles should worry you a little bit. But if you're level-headed about the situation and realize that he's a young kid who's going to only improve, then these struggles should, I don't know if I want to go as far as saying they should be encouraging, but they certainly shouldn't bother you. Like, these things are normal. All players have issues one time or another in practice, especially when they're young, because they're getting used to the league. They're getting used to game speed. And let's not forget that Trey Lance is going against a top-tier defense. I mean, you can argue with it as much as you want, but this 49ers defense is at worst a top 5 defense. And they're probably closer to 1 than they are 5. So with that being said, if you're a fan of the team, Trey's struggles also show you how good this defense is. And we can point to the fact that Trey Lance did very well against Minnesota, who I think we would all say is probably a middle-of-the-road defense. So against an NFL defense that isn't top tier, did very well. Short stint against the Green Bay Packers, did very well. Last time we saw him play in a game versus the Texans, he did very well. So let's just understand what it is. It's just practice. We don't know exactly everything that's going into that. There are practices where we hear that he makes the same throw 4 or 5 times in a row to the same player. Well, they're clearly working on something. And if the defense knows that's coming, you don't think that they're all over that? I think we just need to chill with the Trey Lance thing. Understand that he's going to struggle a little bit throughout the season. All players struggle at some point. All players, I think, deserve 3 years of grace to be in this league. This is year 2 for Trey Lance. Let's see where he's at by the end of the year. Let's see if he's made progress. Because if he makes progress and shows that he can be a top 10 quarterback in this league, that's all I want to see. Like, that's all I want to see. That, to me, is enough. Trey Lance showing progress from week 1 to week 18, which I fully expect, doesn't mean that we can't criticize him. Doesn't mean that we can't hold him accountable. I think that's another conversation. I think a lot of people are afraid to hold him accountable because he hasn't played. That's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, if any of you watched the breakdown that I did of his 5 or so throws, I held him accountable. I held him accountable for the missed throw to Gray. A lot of people said that was on Gray. I completely disagree. 100% on Trey Lance. It's okay to hold him accountable, but also have expectations that are tempered, knowing that this is his first full year starting. So that's where I'm at with the whole Trey Lance thing.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this team, what would you rank Jimmy Garoppolo as far as quarterbacks in 2019?
2019?
Yeah. Top 15?
15 to 18 range?
Okay. What would you rank him last year?
17 to 22?
So, and let's be even more, give him even more bail. Let's say he was top 15 quarterback. Top 15 quarterback got them to a Super Bowl. Top 15 quarterback play got them to an NFC championship play. You think he's closer to 20. So that means that Trey Lance doesn't necessarily need to be, a top 10 quarterback, like you said, for this team to be extremely competitive. Even if Trey is somewhere between 12 to 15 as far as his ability, this team is probably one of the favorites based off of what this defense is capable of and based off of the weapons that are there, right? We got an upgraded Brandon Ayuk. We got an upgraded secondary. We have a deeper defensive line. We have even healthier linebackers. The running backs are younger and fresher, stronger. Like, this team has gotten better in so many different aspects, where Trey Lance obviously is the premier position and he does need to play well, but he doesn't need to play great. He doesn't need to be amazing. He just needs to minimize mistakes and every now and then be able to make a play. And I think he's shown that capability so far. So for me, I expect the struggles. He's a young quarterback, but I still think he's good enough for this team to get exactly where I expect them to get.
By the way, I think he can be easily a top 15 quarterback by the end of the year, right? Like, if he's playing in that level. So to me, the quarterbacks 11 through 14, no particular order, are Dak, Kyler Murray, Carr, and Cousins. I think he can get to that tier or just behind that tier. If he's anywhere close to that, this team can win a Super Bowl with that, because I don't think Jimmy's on that level at all. I don't think he's on that level. So if Lance is close to that or at that level once they reach the playoffs, the rest of the league can be in big trouble. And if he's there by the time this team reaches the playoffs, then expectations in year 3 certainly should skyrocket, right?
Sure. Absolutely. But, that's like 2 years of experience at that point, because you go the regular season plus the playoff run. So absolutely, at that point, you expect big things out of him. And that's year 3 where we expect all these rookies to basically break out, right? So I do think that it's something to pay attention to, right? Because let's hope he needs to make sure he's not making the same mistakes over and over again. Obviously, accuracy is something that he does need to get better at. But look, I think you think that Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the league right now. I think it's pretty hard to argue that he's not. Obviously, there's some guys you might like better, but he's up there in the conversation. What was his accuracy like when he first started playing, right? So it's definitely something, when you have the skill set, you have the talent and the work ethic and the mental capability to work on it. Josh Allen has it. Trey Lance has it. So I expect that to get better as he gets more and more comfortable and more opportunities to throw the ball.
Who's this Jessie imposter? All right, so I have something that I want to throw up to you, and you tell me what your thoughts are. So this whole tracking practice stats is like a new thing, right? And kudos to like Grant and Lombardi and those guys for really kind of starting this trend last year. But I feel like this trend really started last year because there was a perceived quarterback competition, right? And at the very least, you had a rookie come in that they did spend 3 first-rounders on, that people wanted to know, how good is this kid? So that's where it started. This year, it kept going because we still technically don't know what Trey Lance is, right? So people are still really, really interested in this. My bet is this: next year, nobody gives a crap about any of that stuff at all. Like, if Trey Lance comes out and shows the things that we've talked about, shows that progression, shows that he really can be the quarterback for this team for the foreseeable future, nobody's going to give a damn about any practice numbers next year. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. I mean, I think as content creation is getting bigger and bigger, Jesse, and as you have to constantly create new, more and more topics, more and more articles. I think the stats just are a very easy way to do that. You're starting to not only see it here in San Francisco. I've noticed a lot of the beat writers all across the league are tracking stats and stuff like that. I think it's just a easy way to kind of like low-hanging fruit. You know what I mean? Like, because you don't have to add context. You could create any type of narrative you want to create. And I think it's fun for people to argue, right? So I think that it's here to stay, my man.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I feel like right now, and it's funny because, and this has been my argument with Trey Lance, is like, if you somehow think that this kid is going to get worse from 7 months ago when we last saw him play in a real game against the Texans, like, if that's your stance, I think that's a horrible take, right? That's a horrible thought process. because I don't think there's any chance of that happening. In fact, we've already seen in a limited action just how much he's improved with little things like his footwork, how calm he is in the pocket, command of the offense, everything, right? I just feel like right now we're hanging on every single little thing that's coming out of practice, which is funny because we just saw him play and we just saw that it looked pretty good. Yet somehow a Sunday practice with no pads on overtakes every thought process we've ever had. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen. It's crazy to me.
Hey, that's the gift and curse of content creation, my man.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. We'll see. We'll definitely see. The lack of facial hair is too much of a distraction, bro.
They're getting going at your throat right now, man.
They are. You know what though? It's all love. Like, here's the way that I look at it, and it's funny that because I expected this. Like, I would expect nothing more, or excuse me, nothing less from my chat. Like, I expect that they roast me. Like, that's where we're at. Like, this is a big family. I would roast my friend if I saw something different about them that I didn't like. So roast me. It's all good.
Did you see that comment from Gammon Brown? I don't know if you want to talk about that real quick.
Which one? The super chat?
Nah, it was Jessie at Suneil talking about Brett Favre, the comments that he made.
This one?
Did you hear about this?
Did you guys see the comments that Favre made about Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo? I did not. Did you?
I can tell you, yeah. So Brett Favre, it just came out like pretty recently. Brett Favre basically said that he'd go with Jimmy Garoppolo over Trey Lance at this point. So this is what I have to say about it, Gammon. You know, I think that obviously quarterbacks that are legends in this league, you got to listen to what they say. But it's extremely, extremely funny that the quarterbacks that are legends that were replaced by younger, high picks, stuff like that, are ones that tend to want to go with Jimmy Garoppolo. And the quarterbacks that were those younger players that wanted their shot tend to say go with Trey, right? So when you're looking at the quarterbacks that are saying go with Jimmy over Trey, Joe Montana, obviously he got replaced by Steve Young. Brett Favre, obviously he got replaced by Aaron Rodgers. And you go with Steve Young, who's saying go with Trey Lance. He's the one that obviously was the replacer. So for me, I think it's a little bit of bias when it comes to those quarterbacks saying what they have to say. And here's my point to those quarterbacks. Look, at a certain point, if the coaching staff believes that this is a better option, it's worked out better each and every time with the one caveat. And what I mean by that is they chose Steve Young over Joe Montana. What happened with that situation? Steve Young went on and won a Super Bowl. Joe Montana never won a Super Bowl after that. They made that move with Aaron Rodgers over Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers went on and won another Super Bowl. Brett Favre won a Super Bowl after that. The only person, the caveat to the situation is Tom Brady. And Tom Brady hasn't come out and he'd go with Garoppolo over Trey. That's the one person that if he said that, I'd be like, all right, cool. But I don't think he would because he's the one who got Jimmy Garoppolo traded to the 49ers in the first place, right? Because he was like, nah, this guy isn't good enough to take over for me. So for me, I think it's a little bit of bias. Take it with a grain of salt, but reputation and history has shown that moving on with the younger, capable quarterback usually pans out better than sticking with the guy on the decline.
What's crazy though, and I appreciate this comment because I mean we know what Young said. I'm sure Rodgers would say the same. But technically, it did work out with Brady in the sense that Brady's the one that replaced Bledsoe. Remember?
Yeah,
like we've seen it, like Brady, we saw it the other way, and this happens to all quarterbacks. The difference is, and this is what's funny, and we don't know what Trey Lance is going to be. Nobody knows for sure, right? We all have our opinions, whatever. That being said, Joe Montana and Brett Favre are all-time greats. Like Brett Favre's a top 10 quarterback of all time. Joe Montana's the second best quarterback of all time. Some people think the best quarterback of all time. So that being said, you guys are different. Like replacing you was a whole different thing. And even you guys got replaced and it worked out for the better. So replacing Jimmy Garoppolo is not the same as replacing you guys. Now, we don't know if Trey Lance is going to be Aaron Rodgers or Steve Young. That is fair. We do not know. But we do know that we're not winning a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's time to move on. It is interesting how some of those old heads have that grudge from being replaced that they're just like, no, I wouldn't do it either. Keep him in. He's earned it. He didn't win a Super Bowl. He hasn't won MVPs. He's not the best player in the league. Like Brett Favre, you had 3 MVPs back to back to back. Joe Montana, perfect Super Bowl record. You guys are greats, all-time greats in this league. Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, what are we talking about? So it is an interesting take that those guys have, though. Adrian with a funny comment, he says Jesse's going to take this roast and manifest it into a boxing sesh. Probably. That's probably very likely.
Insert Twitter video in 1.5 hours.
Right, exactly. I do appreciate that, though, Adrian. I do want to say this before we get on to the next topic of overreaction. We got a lot to go, so we'll see if we make it through them all. But pinned to the top of the chat, there's a link. All right, that link is for an application called Playback. It's free, totally free. Here's what it is. On Thursday, I'm going to try it out, but you can watch the game with me. And when I say watch the game with me, it's not watch me talk about the game. It's literally the game is on the screen, and I'm a little box in the corner. You can mess with the volume. You can listen to me. You can listen to the game. You can listen to us both. But you get to watch the game with the community. And I think that's pretty cool. It's free to do. All you have to do is click the link, sign in with your TV provider to show that you have some sort of access to watch the game anyways. And I think I might do this for a lot of the games this season, right? Like, I think it's a cool way to just interact with the community. It's called Playback. Like I said, link is at the top of the chat. Click on that, free to do, but you can watch the games with myself and hopefully everybody in this chat. So I wanted to throw that plug out there. This Thursday is the first time that we are doing that. That being said, so we just talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, talked about Trey Lance. People are still very frustrated that Jimmy's on this roster, and people have this thought all of a sudden that Jimmy's not going to be cut when they do their roster cuts on the 30th. Is that an overreaction? Or what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be ignoring every single sign to think that Jimmy's still going to be on this roster when they have to cut him, right? Mayoko just recently came out, I think it was yesterday, with an article saying that people around the 49ers believe Jimmy Garoppolo.
Let me answer this question real quick, because I know it's old school to say cable TV. YouTube TV works. If you have NFL, like Game Pass, that works. Hulu, anything that provides you any sort of TV streaming service, if you have it and pay for it, that's what you got to sign in with. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah. So I just think, I was talking about the Mayoko article. So Mayoko just came out the other day saying that the talk around the 49ers team is that they believe Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a Seahawk. Okay, well, why would they be talking about where another team that Jimmy was going to go to if they had any plan to keep Jimmy, right? So, I think I know Rohan's been tweeted something out about, I forget who said it, but that there's no chance, 0% chance that Jimmy ends up on the roster when it comes time to cut. I mean, I think that anybody that still doesn't understand why Jimmy's on the team at this point is just doesn't want to understand, right? Obviously, they wanted to trade him. That was very clear. The market dried up because of his surgery. And now there's no reason to cut him until they have to cut him because at the end of the day, he still is an asset till he's not an asset. So why not hold on to the asset till he becomes a detriment? And he doesn't become a detriment till that contract actually kicks in and is fully guaranteed. So keep him till he's a detriment and cut him before he becomes a detriment. And that's going to be before they need to have that 53-man roster situated by the end of this month. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Greatness is talking about that Playback service. He looks like he watched it with Jason and those guys. So, yeah, I mean, it seems pretty cool. I'm excited to try it out. Like I said, I mean, there's really nothing involved. You just have to sign up. It's free to do. And you get to watch the game with the community. So it's pretty cool stuff. But that being said, yeah, you know what? I hate to kind of play the fence on this, but it just depends on where you're at. Because I don't think it's an overreaction to be frustrated that we've made it this far with Jimmy, because right now we have some O-line issues, and we're going to talk about those in depth as well. But we have some questions at O-line, and I know you remember me saying this many months ago, and I said it probably 2 or 3 shows in a row. It would be a shame if the O-line is what holds this team back from winning, knowing that they had the golden ticket in Jimmy Garoppolo's contract on this roster the whole time, and they didn't cash in on that. That would be a shame. Right now, and we have some time, so I'm not saying that's for sure going to happen, but it certainly seems to be trending that way, and that's not a good look. So is it an overreaction to be frustrated that he's on the roster to this point? I don't think so. But is it an overreaction knowing that they didn't cash in on that ticket to wait another week to figure this out? Yeah, it's definitely an overreaction, because at this point we've already come this far. What do you expect to happen? The 49ers, and we know that Shanahan's weird about this stuff because he talked about it last year with the Lions. He refused to name a starter, even though he had talked about who the starter was, refused to officially name the starter because he wanted to have the leg up on the Detroit Lions of all teams, right? So do you think that maybe it's possible he wants to have the leg up here on a division foe, even if they are probably a terrible team? Yeah, probably. So if they think he's going to Seattle, they want to give him as little time to prep, because remember, they play Seattle in week 2. So if he only has a week before the season to prep, and then he's the starter in week 2, advantage 49ers, right? And that's the way that he's looking at it. I don't have an issue with that. So overreacting at this point, yeah, if you're just now frustrated with the situation, probably an overreaction. But if you've been frustrated and you were worried about certain roster spots on this team and the depth in those areas, and you're seeing it kind of crumble around you, then I don't think that's an overreaction. So play the fence on that one.
I don't see anything crumbling around in the 49ers. I think it's an overreaction for anybody.
Let's talk about it, my friend. Let's talk about it. Because the 49ers have a lot of injuries. We have Mike McGlinchey out. We have both Wards out. We have Elijah Mitchell out. Is it an overreaction to talk about these injuries, be worried about these injuries, and maybe 1 or 2 injuries it is, the other ones it's not? What are your thoughts on the injury front? Are we overreacting?
The ones that do worry me are the Wards, just because they're hamstring injuries, and those tend to linger. So I want them to be held out till they're fully 100% healthy. I don't want them to come back 80%, 90%, because any type of tweak can extend those. As far as I think Mitchell is going to be fine. They replenish the running back room. That's going to be fine. And McGlinchey, I would be worried about, except for what we're seeing Burford. So I think that I think that there's enough depth at every single position that we're mentioning, even though all 4 of those guys are starters, are slated to be starters. There's enough depth that this team could still keep their head above water till these guys come back. And none of these injuries are looking to be like season-ending injuries. None of these are like 5-6 weeks. We're talking about 1 or 2 weeks max before these guys, with the exception of maybe McGlinchey. We're not quite sure when he's going to be coming back, but I'm comfortable with moving McGlinchey to right tackle, maybe putting in a guy like Jason Poe at right guard.
You mean Burford to right tackle? Burford to
right tackle. Yeah, Burford to right tackle. Maybe Poe moving into right guard since he's starting to play really, really well. Brendel at center, Banks at left guard, and then obviously Trent Williams at left tackle. All of a sudden, you went from a question mark of an offensive, the most athletic offensive line in the league, right? With that type of talent, you're younger, more athletic, and so on and so forth. So I don't know, man. I do think that obviously the 49ers have dealt with injuries over the whole time Kyle Shanahan has been here. And the only injury that's really mattered to them being able to be competitive or not is the injury at quarterback. So for me, I do think that it is a reaction to think that, that they don't have enough depth to keep this team competitive. as long as Trey Lance is the starter there, I think they're gonna be fine because they've figured out ways to plug and play when these guys have been injured and still be able to win.
All right. You know what? When it comes to Travarius Ward, I'm not really too worried about it. First of all, it sounds like Verrett's going to start off on the pup, so he'll miss the first 4 games. After that, like, if something happens to one of those corners, God forbid, Verrett's a pretty good backup option, right? So not too worried about that. Elijah Mitchell, it sounds like he's going to be ready for week 1. Shanahan talked about that a little bit today. Jimmy Ward, I think, to me, is the most important piece of the defense for this year, right? Not the best player, but much like Verrett, I thought last year was the most important piece to that defense. I look at Jimmy Ward much of the same way because I don't really trust the safeties behind him. Sounds like he's going to miss probably a week or 2, and if that's the case, as long as he's back by week 3, and I think he will be, good to go. Mike McGlinchey, though, and I said this with Rohan yesterday, I want the old problems back, Suneil. The old worries that we had were, oh my gosh, the interior offensive line, they don't have Mac. They got rid of Laken Tomlinson. How are these young guys going to do? Who's going to play center? What are we going to do? I liked those problems because not knowing who the right tackle is going to be, that scares the hell out of me. Thinking that there's 4 brand new starters on an offensive line that possibly could include McKivitz, meaning that from left guard to right tackle, 7 combined starts in this league. That scares the hell out of me. That I don't think is an overreaction to be worried about. And that in front of your franchise quarterback that we want to see progression from, that worries me. That worries the hell out of me, man. And I don't know. I don't know if McGlinchey's going to be healthy. I don't know if he's ever going to be healthy. It seems like they're playing coy on it. We'll see. We'll see what happens with McGlinchey. But McGlinchey gave me some comfort that at least they were bookend. Now I have no idea. And McKivitz, if that's the option to right tackle, I'm not looking forward to that. And I think the future with Burford at right tackle and Poe at guard, I do really like that. I think that future is bright. But you've had Burford working at guard all offseason, and he's a rookie. So to move him now to right tackle or just before the season starts, I don't like that move either. I don't feel comfortable with that move either. So I don't know, man. Talk me off the ledge. I'm worried about this offensive line. I really am.
And here's the thing, like I said, go back to what this team has been dealing with throughout, right? Did you think last year that Tom Compton was going to be a competent player at right tackle? Like if we said, Mike McGlinchey's going down for the season, Tom Compton is going to come in and man that right side with Brunskill. Are you just as worried as you are right now? Probably, right? And the reality is it worked out fine. They made it to the NFC Championship game, and they didn't really lose that many. They didn't really lose that many games because of Tom Compton, if any games because of Tom Compton. So when I said, like, yo, we've dealt with this, we've seen this happen, and the team has been fine as long as there's a starting caliber quarterback to run this team can withstand a multitude of injuries, right? We don't want to test it, but that's been injury that they overcome. We've overcome a season-ending injury with the right guard or right tackle. We've overcome missing a left tackle for a couple of games, right? We've overcome losing defensive linemen. We've overcome losing linebackers. We've overcome losing cornerbacks, losing safeties. So we've seen this team still be able to perform at a high level with these type of injuries. So like I said, I'm not too worried about it, Jesse. Kyle Shanahan is still the coach. D'Amico Ryans is still the defensive coach. They still have studs all through this roster. They'll be fine. As long as the quarterback stays healthy, they'll be fine. I know we're back to pessimistic Jesse, back to Jesse with no beard. The pessimist is out, but positive Suneil is here, still bearded up, still glistening with the smile. It'll be all right. Kyle Shanahan is still our coach.
I don't know. Gammon just offered up your beard for 150 likes. I don't know if Suneil would do it for that. Although I feel like Suneil could probably grow a beard in a smooth week. That being said, you help get him to 1,000 subs. Subscribe to his channel. Links in the description. I bet you he might consider it. I'll just throw that out there. I'll throw that out there for Suneil. I don't think he cares about my 150 likes. Just being real with you. All right. Listen, you're right. I think ultimately the quarterback position is the most important, but what protects the quarterback position, right? And it's those guys that are right in front. We also know, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's say McGlinchey's out. We know that Trent Williams is going to miss a couple games. He does every single year. Every year he will miss games. Last year it happened at the most inopportune time. Whatever. But that being said, he will miss games. And when he does, who the hell is going to play left tackle? And then what are they looking at? I don't know. I'm just worried about the offensive line. I think people deserve to be worried about the offensive line. Suneil, give us that. Give us that.
So no, but I won't give you that. But I will give an answer to what the guys in the chat are asking. So let's do this. We are on August 23rd.
Okay.
By the end of this month, if I'm at 1,000 subscribers, I'll come to the Tuesday show with Jesse that next week. Beardless.
Oh, I like this. I like this. Guys, gals, whoever is watching, link is in the description. Go subscribe to his channel. Let's get him to 1,000. We're not far away. I want Beardless Suneil. I don't want to go with this alone, right? And I feel it right now. I feel a little naked over here without a beard. I would like my co-host to also go beardless. So I'm just throwing it out there. Make it easy. Links in the description. Go help out Suneil. Help us out, really. Give him a sub. Let's get him to 1,000. He'll shave his beard also. I love it. All right. I'm gonna get something that you're worried about. You're too positive for me, Suneil. Wide receiver drops. Are you worried about wide receiver drops, Suneil? Now, this is something that we've heard throughout practice. And what's interesting is a lot of people pinned it last year. Remember when the drop started, they were pinning it on the wobbly ball from Trey Lance. We saw it every time he played. Threw too hard. He threw too many wobblers. Well, Trey Lance didn't even play the other day. And Purdy and Sudfeld did. Still a lot of drops. Are you worried about wide receiver drops?
Tell me this, Jesse. Who's dropping the ball?
Debo's having a lot of drops in practice. It seems like almost two every day.
Who had the most drops in the league last year? Or one of the highest drops?
Well, Debo was up there. Debo was up there. Yeah, he was like 11 or 9 or something.
It's the same guy. Who else is having these drops? Debo also had one of the greatest years of any wide receiver of all time. So we could give him some bail. Jennings is having some drops. Who else?
I think a lot of the backup players.
Interesting.
I like how you're putting me together here. Go ahead.
Interesting, right? So once again, this is what I love about Jesse. Jesse just did a whole rant about 15 minutes ago about why stats in quarterback stats are ruining this, and we should not have this anymore, and nobody's gonna care anymore. Then just 15 minutes later, he's like, Suneil, wide receiver drops. Tell me,
Suneil, you're cutting out. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. This is really weird. You're losing reception.
Look, no, I am not worried about wide receiver drops for a few reasons. One, none of the wide receivers that are getting all of these drops, for the most part, are guys that he's going to be throwing the ball with through the regular season. Jennings, that is something to pay attention to, because Jennings is going to be a key contributor in third downs and also on the goal line. However, if he can't keep his hands on the ball, he's just going to be there for a blocking wide receiver, which is fine. And Ray McLeod is still there. They still have, Danny Gray that could be put in. So they have a lot of depth there if Jennings doesn't get his stuff together. Debo, Debo's going to be there for a few drops here and there. He's done it every single season he's been here. He's still able to contribute even past those drops. Brandon Ayuk is not having trouble catching the ball, right? So he's going to get most of that. George Kittle is not having trouble catching the ball. He's going to get most of the targets. So for me, I'm just not worried about it. Once again, the vanilla offense of the 49ers. when you do see the 49ers run their schemes, how often are these wide receivers ridiculously they don't have as many contested catches as they need to in the regular season because of how the schemes are, and Kyle Shanahan is just a genius at that. So no, I'm not worried because the starters are going to be the starters. The people that are doing the majority of the drops aren't even guys that are getting thrown the ball to a lot, including Jennings. He's what, at best the fourth option, maybe even fifth if they do a running back before him, because it's going to Debo, it's going to Ayuk, it's going to Kittle, and maybe even a running back before it's getting to Jennings. So am I that worried that our fifth offense is having some drop issues? My answer is no, Jesse. I'm not that worried.
That being said, let's talk about Jennings a little bit. Let's spin off on Jennings because do you think that Gray or Ray take over for Jennings
by the end of the season? is going to be utilized in this offense quite a bit. He has a couple of things that that he's bringing to the team. One, I think he could be a bona fide wide back 2, which is going to be good because now you have 2 guys that could do that role instead of just having Debo be the only one to be able to run those plays. And then also, he's just shown that he's a much better route runner and a receiver overall than people expected from him. And because he's been at wide receiver university, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They are the best. They even got another guy over there that people are saying might be the best wide receiver out of the rookie class in Pickens. So for me, I think that Ray has done enough this training camp to be able to earn some packages in the regular season. Hopefully he could hold on to the ball because obviously fumbling is something to be aware of for him. But I think that he's going to be a very impactful player as a wide receiver. And, Jennings, it's not going to be handed to Jennings. He's the best blocker out of all the wide receivers, so he's going to earn some playing time. But I do see Ray McCloud getting into some packages.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Danny Gray, I think his speed is really starting to translate early on here. And we might see it a little bit quicker from him than what we expected, which would be great. I think Jennings might lose that job. And it's crazy because the way that the team talked about him was like he's one of the best players on the team. You heard Fred Warner say it in the offseason. So it is interesting to see it kind of play out. I think it's still his job when the season starts, but I think slowly but surely by the end of the year, Jennings is not going to be that third player. So it'll be interesting to see. Donald says, Jesse, can we see the ink on your arm? I don't know how well it'll translate, but I'm a man of faith. I don't think there's any surprise about that. I definitely am open about that, but it's a life after death scene. So it's a graveyard, and then it goes up to Heaven's Gates. There's an angel, and you can see Heaven's Gates. There's a stairway to it and all that stuff. So that's what it is. That was fun. That was about an 18 hours and 3 sessions. That was a fun one. That one tickled a little bit.
Get some Band-Aids for that boy, because that boy ripped.
All right. So this one, you know what? This one's interesting because I don't think we're worried about the running back position, right? There's a lot of running backs on this team, capable running backs. So I'm not going to preface this as, are you worried about the running back position if Trey Sermon's out or whatever? But Trey Sermon struggles. Is it an overreaction to think that a 3rd-round pick a year ago, a guy that was handpicked by Shanahan, all of a sudden is on this roster bubble? What do you think about Trey Sermon?
Yeah, so this one does hit home for me because I'm a big Trey Sermon fan. I expected a lot out of him, and I still believe in him. Like, I think that he's still going to make the team, and he still can be very productive. I think it is. I mean, look, out of all the running backs that have played during the preseason, he's been the worst. Plain and simple, right? You go by by what's actually happening on the field. He seems to have, be dancing around instead of making decisive decisions. But he still continues to get the bulk of the first team reps. So the reality is Kyle Shanahan still believes in him. And I still think that with the actual offensive line with the schemes that the 49ers are ultimately going to run when it comes to the running game, I think is going to give some more room for a guy like Trey Sermon. But it is something to pay attention to because we haven't seen the reports and we haven't seen the articles and we haven't seen even Kyle Shanahan come up with like positives of Trey Sermon. And after, he's in his second year, second training camp, to still not hear that these wow things that we were hearing about Elijah Mitchell, that we're hearing about a Jordan Mason, that we're hearing about a TDP. The fact that we haven't heard those about Trey Sermon, to me, is where the red flag is, Jesse, more than what we're actually seeing on the field. Because on the field, I think things are going to completely change when they got the full breadth of their weapons, when Trey Lance is there fully playing, because we know he's a weapon. He's going to make it easier for the running backs to get some space. And we also know the schemes are going to change as well. So I'm not worried as far as that it can't get better, because I think just the running is going to get way better when the regular season starts. I am worried, though, of what I just said. The fact that we still haven't seen anything or heard anything about Trey Sermon wowing people. But I haven't seen any of the practices. I trust my guy Rohan, who was at every single practice during training camp when it was open to the public. And I think that, he believes that Trey Sermon did show enough to be the bona fide running back too. And so I got to just go with the eyes that were there.
Yeah, this one's tough because, I think we talked about heading into camp guys that we were looking to kind of break out, and Sermon was the guy that we talked about a lot. And I was really rooting for him. I mean, this is a kid that I thought played very well in the second half against Seattle with Trey Lance at his side. And I think we agree that he was brought in to play with Trey Lance, right? Like play out of that shotgun next to Trey Lance. So seeing him look his best when Trey Lance was on the field was encouraging. And then we saw how hard he worked in the offseason, all the videos he was posting, and then just physically his body had changed. Felt like he was really turning that corner to be a good running back in this league. And maybe he still is. But I'll be curious to see what the 49ers do with Sermon, because they've had a tendency to hold on to players for too long, in my opinion. And so I'm interested to see, I just said that I think most players in this league deserve 3 years of grace. Running back is that one position. That's like the one exception position, because running backs routinely come into this league and blow up right away. Running backs in year 2, year 3 are hitting a whole new stride. And a running back's shelf life in this league is much less than all those other positions. Mm-hmm. So a running back usually hits the ground running, pun intended, but that has not been the case with Sermon. And now we're in year 2 and it doesn't look like that's the case again. Maybe I'm wrong. I think he is on the bubble, and I think he's playing for his job this week. I mean, there's too many good running backs, and unless they decide to keep 5, if they're going to keep 4 like I suspect that they will, man, I mean, how do you cut guys that have done something in this league? How do you cut a Mason who's looked so explosive? How do you cut a TDP that you literally just drafted? And obviously Elijah Mitchell's the starter. I think those 3 guys should be a lock to make this team. And then it comes down to Sermon and 2 veterans, 2 guys that have proven something on this team, 2 guys that have contributed to this team, and 1 guy in Wilson who has actually won you games in this league. I think it's hard to pass those guys up for a guy like Sermon unless, like you said, there's something that Shanahan has seen, there's something that they've seen in practice, film room, what have you, that we are not privy to. I have a hard time keeping Sermon over some of those other guys. That's just me.
And here's the biggest thing about Trey Sermon is he's a workhorse back. He's used to being able to get the ball handed to him quite often and be able to get into a groove and really kind of work on the defense and start to explode and get the type of production that we saw when he was at Ohio State. With Elijah Mitchell being the bona fide running back 1, he's that opportunity to just have 15, 20 rush attempts per game. He's going to get 6 to 8 rushes per game max. And he has to learn how to be effective in just that opportunity, right? So to me, that's I think where he needs to we're seeing it, right? In the preseason, he's gotten 5 rushes, 4 rushes, 6 rushes, like around that area. And he hasn't seen the results. Well, that's probably more realistic about the amount of opportunities he's going to get versus him getting 10, 12, 15, because we know most of those are going to go to Elijah Mitchell. So it is something to be to pay attention to. I hope that he figures it out. Obviously, I don't think Elijah Mitchell is going to play this Thursday. I think Trey Sermon is going to get his opportunity to be running back 1, and he is going to have most of the starters there. So he needs to show that he can do something with the ball. But if it's another, 5, 6, 8 rushing attempts with 9 yards, it's going to be tough because, like you said, Jordan Mason is showing, what he's capable of. TDP is showing what he's capable of. And we already know Shanahan trusts both Hasty and Jeff Wilson Jr. So,
and the thing with Sermon too, listen, I've gone back and I've watched all the film on it. There really wasn't a lot for him to run through. I totally agree with that take. The problem is when Mason was in there, outside of a play or two, there wasn't a lot for him to run through either. And he was constantly picking up 3, 4 yards, falling forward, just making quick, decisive decisions. Trey Sermon was not doing that. So it's like, even if there's nothing there, as long as you're quick to hit whatever you think you see and you're willing to get your helmet dirty and get in there, you're probably going to pick up a couple yards naturally. Sermon is hesitating, not falling forward. Thus, he's gaining a yard, losing a yard, staying at the line of scrimmage. That's where the difference is. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Mason better make this team. If they let Mason go thinking they can sneak this kid on the practice squad, that's a mistake. I think he's got the makings to be a really good player in this league. He really does.
I think he makes it. Anthony Lynn was talking about him months ago, so he hasn't disappointed.
For sure. No, he's definitely lived up to those expectations. Plays a hell of a lot faster than his 4.55 or whatever the heck he ran, 4.63, I don't remember. But he plays way faster than that, and he is a handful. I mean, no arm tackle is bringing that kid down. It's funny because I actually think he looks more physical than TDP, who looks very physical, by the way. TDP looks physical. He looks even more physical, which is crazy to say. So both of those guys, imagine them in the fourth quarter wearing down defenses. I like the looks of that. So before we get into Thursday's expectations, and we can go a million different ways with this, I say it one last time. Pinned to the top of the chat is a link for a watch party on Thursday to watch the game. Not just watch me watch the game and tell you what's happening, but the game will visually be on screen. I'll be in the corner, and we can all talk and just enjoy the game together. You can see the things that go through my mind as I watch a game. Can bring you guys up on stage. We can have good conversation, make it very interactive. You have to have some sort of either cable provider, streaming service, something. So you will have to log in with that, whether that's like a Hulu, a YouTube, what have you. But do that now so that it's all set up and ready to go. And then Thursday, have that same link ready, enter that, and we'll watch the game together. All right. Thursday expectations, Suneil. I want to keep Trey Lance separate because I think we're going to have our expectations for him. But as far as the rest of the team, what are you looking to see? It sounds like the starters, for the most part, are going to be playing a majority of that first half. So what are you looking to see from this team come Thursday?
I want to see fluidity in this offense. Not much I need to see from the defense. I think the defense is going to be dominant. We've seen it, and maybe see the depth at cornerback a little bit because Ward probably isn't going to play. Both Wards aren't probably going to play. But for me, it's really from the offense. And here's the thing, what I mean from that, Jesse, is like the offense has a very great opportunity with how good this defense is to make it even easier for this defense to be dominant. And what I mean by that, last year, and this is more feelings over facts, I just remember feeling like the offense was just stagnant. They couldn't score, especially in the first half. And the defense was just keeping it close. And then, luckily in the second half, they were able to score enough to end up winning the game by 1 possession, right? If this offense could even just just put up a score every single quarter, whether it be a field goal or a touchdown, and start making these teams play from behind. How good this rush be with those corners back there if they could force opposing offenses to be one-dimensional. And that's what I want to see from this offense is when you have Debo out there, when you have Ayuk out there, when you have Kittle out there, when you have out there, are you guys able to move the ball consistently from the first drive? And to me, that's the thing that's been missing to take this team over the hump and just be the dominant team that I think this team is capable of. So that's what I want to see. Like, I want to see no 3 and outs. I want them to be able to get that first down on every single drive. And whatever happens, if that ends up being a scoring drive or not a scoring drive, I just want them to be able to string together at least 1 or 2 first downs on every single drive. So because I know they're not going to show the whole offense, but at least if they could do that much, Jesse, to me, that's progress that this offense can actually go out and be a higher scoring, higher octane scoring offense, which I think makes this defense unstoppable.
I like it. Continuity on offense. And I don't know if you heard today, but Trent Williams said the offense was a work in progress. That's the way that he labeled the offense. And I agree. I mean, you're working through a lot. Who's the starting offensive line? Debo was not really there all offseason to work with Trey Lance, so you're trying to work him in. Same thing with Kittle. There's a lot going on. You got a first-year starting quarterback. Your starting running back hasn't been there. It is a work in progress, I'm sure. And so I love that you touched on those things because those are the minute things that will show that the work in progress is working towards progress. And I would love to see it. For me, all the concerns that we've talked about all show, that's what I want to see. I want to see if McGlinchey's not in there, how does the right tackle hold up? How does the interior offensive line hold up? Because, again, we're talking about 7 combined starts from left guard to right tackle. How does it hold up? I'm curious to see. Running back position, how does that play out? Does Trey Sermon get a lot of burn? How do these guys look? Do they rotate them through with Mitchell not being there while they have the first team out there to figure out who's really worth keeping? And then wide receiver drops. Listen, I want to see Debo make a tough catch. If the throw is a little bit inside and high, make those grabs. Help your quarterback out. How do they work in Jennings? How do they work in Gray? All those other things. So for me, those are the things that I'll be looking for. Basically, the culmination of this show, I want to see it play out on Thursday. How does it look? Now, Trey Lance, whole different topic. Why don't you tell me your expectations for one Trey Lance?
I mean, Trey Lance has looked good, against these opposing offenses. I mean, Houston, we've seen him play against this team in a must-win game for the 49ers. And the second half of that game, he was near, right? So what I'm looking for out of Trey Lance, I just want to see him manage the game. I want to see him be able to be, hopefully I don't expect him to be super accurate because he's still not there yet, but at least don't put the ball in harm's way. And what I mean by that is if you're going to be off, make sure you're off in a way that the defense can't get the ball. And I just want to see him move the ball. I want to see him have a little bit more touch on his short passes. I want to see him make good decisions in the pocket. I want to see him, I love the fact that he's still looking, he's moving around in the pocket, looking to throw and then taking off. I want to see more of that baseball slide, and just overall, just do him. I just want to see too big for him, that he's not forcing things, that he's playing within his game, and he understands that this team isn't asking you to be Patrick Mahomes. This team is asking you to be the second-year player, Trey Lance, and just continue to progress week after week. And that's really what it is. I don't have numbers that I want to see him get to, touchdowns I want to see him get to. I just want, from after I watch the game, or at least his portion of when he's playing in the game, to be he looked comfortable. He looked like the moment wasn't too big for him, and the offense was moving because he was at the helm.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see him build on all those great things from week one. I mean, the way that he looked calm in the pocket, the way anytime he was being pressured, he kept both hands on the football. the way that he made the right decision every drop back. I want to see all of those things. I want to see it continue. If he has a bad throw and it's in the middle of a series, or heaven forbid he has a pick the first series, something like that, I want to see how he bounces back. Those are the things I'm looking for. The numbers really are irrelevant to me. Decision making, calmness, command of the offense, all of those things. And then above all, stay healthy. For the love of God, please, please stay healthy. So those are the things that I'm looking for. Gammon has a question for us. Says, Jessie, Suneil, please be 100%. How many interceptions will Justin Fields throw week 1? What are your thoughts on
that? He's really trying to get his beards in.
He really is. He's trying to, baby smooth over here.
Look, Gammon, I committed to a beard bet. So we get to 1,000 subscribers by the first of the month. I will shave off the beard and be on this show beardless. So that's the bet that I'll make with the beard. As far as how many interceptions Justin Fields will have, I hate this question because I'm a Justin Fields fan. I like him. I want him to do well. The Bears really haven't done much to make him successful. I think that the defensive line is going to love the opportunity to go at Justin. I'll say he throws at least 1.
Yeah, I think he's going to have at least 2 turnovers. I do. I think Justin Fields is going to be running for his life. And one thing that I really like seeing from Trey Lance is when he's faced pressure, he does a good job. And this is hard for young quarterbacks to do, and some quarterbacks never get around this. Trey Lance does a great job of stepping up into the pocket. I don't know if you've ever even played Madden, but when you play Madden and you're the quarterback, that's a hard thing to even do in frickin' Madden. That's something he does naturally. It's what Trey Lance does. When you watch Justin Fields, that O-line is not good. He goes backwards a lot, right? And those backwards, trying to make something happen, all of a sudden you get tripped up with the shoelace tackle and you've lost 15 yards on a second down. Good luck. Like, those are the things that you can't have happen as a quarterback. I see that from Fields. Not all the time, but I see it enough to where I would be concerned about that. I think Fields is probably going to get sacked 5 times. I expect 2 turnovers one way or another, whether it's a fumble, interception, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. I don't think it's going to go well for Fields this time around. And I like Fields as well. It sucks to see that he's stuck in that situation right now. I think Fields will be fine, though. I think he'll show glimpses this year, things that you want to see that he can be the franchise quarterback. They just have to do a better job of building around him going forward. That being said, I just think week 1 it's going to be struggle bus for him for sure. So I did. Gammon, thank you so much for pointing out I missed the super chat. Chris saying that I just tuned in. Jessie, you judo flipped the hair off. Yeah, man. Beard gone, my friend. Beard gone for sure. All right, Suneil, thank you again. I'm glad we got the Tuesday show back on track. Again, links in the description to subscribe to him. Link is pinned to the top of the chat to watch the game with me live on Thursday. Like I said, the game and I will be there. You don't have to watch the game on TV and listen to me. It's all right there through that link. Check in there, free to do, sign in, get ready. Thursday, we'll watch that game together. And then tomorrow night, I'll be back with my guy Grant for 49ers After Dark. And until then,